you can run a performance converter, you know, a high stall converter, and cruise. So you've got, let's say, a Chevelle or a Charger or whatever, and you're cruising down the road at, let's say, 70 or 75 miles an hour, and you want to run a 3500 or 4500 stall converter, but you're worried that if you have a gear vendors and your cruising RPM with a 355 rear ratio and 29-inch tire is going to put you down at 2500 RPM, can I cruise at 2500 RPM with a 4500 stall converter? And most always, yes. A guy who's typically running that big a stall converter is probably making close to 1,000 horsepower. You go to your converter builder and you say, okay, here's my dyno sheet, I want my converter built so it'll stall behind this horsepower at 4500 RPM when I'm on the trans brake. But in reality, when I'm just putting down the road at 70, 75 miles an hour, I'm not making anywhere near the peak horsepower. I'm only making enough horsepower to overcome the wind resistance and the rolling resistance of the vehicle on the road. So imagine you took the smallest motor out of a VW bus or a Pinto or whatever. I mean, it's only making 60 horsepower and it's easily going to drive the car 75 miles an hour on flat ground. If you were making more than that, you'd be accelerating. Well, if you take even a very high stall converter and only put 60 horsepower to it, it's fully hooked up. You're getting no slippage that you note, no slippage that's building heat and that kind of thing. Now, if you were to start climbing a hill or going on the throttle some without changing gears, then you could notice a flare. So if you start feeding in some horsepower with a 4500 stall converter on the highway and start giving it some gas, well, then you could notice a little flare, but that's why you have a gear vendor. So you can shut off the overdrive or go down to second over and stay right in the power band so that when you're accelerating, you're actually hooked up at that moment too. At Drag Week, one of the events that Gear Vendors is pretty famous for, I mean, we run 5,500 stall converters there. Jeff Lutz's 57 Chevy, which is a real steel 57 Chevy, so it's weighing 3,800 pounds. And he is running right at 2,500, maybe a little more horsepower. And with the big, probably a 32-inch, wrinkle wall drag tire on it, and running 1,800 RPMs at 75, 80 miles an hour down the highway. That's how we get the valve train all relaxed and lasting on that big a horsepower motor for 1,400 miles of driving at Drag Week. But yes, all quality converters that are high stall, when you only put 60, 65, 70 horsepower to them, they're going to be very nice to drive on the street. Person who's putting in our product and he's getting 25 to 30% better fuel economy out of a 28.6% faster ratio, that's really showing that the efficiency of the converter is there. And that's what we typically see. A street-driven vehicle that's 355 rear gear, 28-inch tire, 3,500 stall. That's a very common, street application, and then we go to the more radical ones, of course.